Thank you very much, and thank you very much for the invitation to be here. It's a privilege to be part of such an innovative symposium, and I've been really inspired being here for the week working with such fantastic students as well. So as Nicholas said, my talk today is called Acoustic Ecology in Action. And this will focus around two specific projects. But before I get into introducing these projects, might just move that a bit closer. I just want to give some context to what I'll be talking about. So in December 2015, members of the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change agreed to strengthen the global response to climate change and accelerate actions to reduce our global temperature increase well below 2 degrees Celsius. Now, this monumental result from COP21 in Paris really came at a time where climate change is undeniably reaching a global tipping point. Climate change is arguably the most critical issue that humanity is facing in the 21st century. Now, the evidence is absolutely clear, with 97% of scientists agreeing that human influence is the dominant cause of global warming. However, climate change is not simply a scientific concern. I believe this is truly a cultural crisis that is a result of deeply ingrained, unsustainable ways of thinking and acting. And this cultural crisis really requires interdisciplinary action and integration with social and political systems to mobilise collective action. Scientists continue to urge for action to address the consequences of this crisis, and the critical steps towards a sustainable low-carbon future have been clearly outlined and widely championed by public figures. Yet, the engagement required for this paradigm shift really remains to be a challenge. So climate change mitigation and adaptation requires interdisciplinary approaches that bridge the ethical, social and cultural challenges and really reframe the boundaries of sustainability. So the arts and humanities are certainly beginning to play a very key role in reframing the narrative of climate change, particularly after 2 decades of scientific consensus has had limited success in public engagement. Now, in our visually dominant society, listening to the state of the environment can inspire us at a very profound and sensory level. Immersive sonic experiences can transport us to a place and time and evoke sensory, empathetic and philosophical responses to climate change. And composers and sound artists drawing on environmental field recordings have an unprecedented opportunity to respond to climate change through artistic and scientific possibilities of sonic art. So as a sound artist and researcher, I specialise in acoustic ecology and emerging fields of biology concerned with the study of environmental patterns and changes through sound. I'm interested in the possibilities of acoustic ecology as an active, socially embedded interdisciplinary field that can truly inspire communities across the world to listen to the environment. So over the last decade, I've been exploring ways to engage communities in acoustic ecology through creative projects, emerging technologies, intensive education programs, and artistic and scientific collaborations. This has resulted in a wide spectrum of interdisciplinary projects that position composers and sound artists within multi-platform collaborations working directly within communities, so working directly with society. So before I introduce these projects, I just wanted to provide a little bit of background on my work. So as a composer, I work mainly in immersive sonic environments, and all of my work is drawn from environmental field recordings. So This image on the left here was actually taken just yesterday in the 3D sound installation that Nicholas was talking about earlier, where I've been working this week in adapting one of my existing pieces for this incredible immersive 3D sound environment. And while this is the first time I've worked with this particular system, all of my work is designed in an immersive way, in that I almost 90% of the time work with multi-channel systems to really position people inside these sonic environments. The image on the right-hand side is the opposite spectrum of my creative practice, where for the last decade I've also been working with mobile phones in exploring ways that we can bring these sonic environments to urban spaces, so augmenting public space with sound, which is now known as the field of augmented reality. So at the beginning of my career as a composer, I was really interested in exploring ways in which my artistic practice could contribute towards environmental awareness and engagement. My doctoral research focused on the development and dissemination of original electroacoustic music compositions that were drawing on these environmental field recordings. And this was taken from various parts of the world. So the central questions of my research were really investigating the possibilities of electroacoustic music in contributing towards environmental awareness and engagement. These works were composed in cultural immersion, travelling to the locations that inspired the projects, collecting field recordings, and working intensively and directly with the local communities. The social and cultural context was a vital element for the realisation of each project. And through this process, education became a critical part of my practice. I began facilitating workshops in all the communities I was working with, particularly revolving around media aesthetic education and using portable digital field recorders to help communities explore and document their changing sonic environments. Now, many of the projects that I've developed began in the Noosa Biosphere Reserve in Queensland, Australia, which was designated by UNESCO in 2007. It was the first biosphere reserve recognised in the state of Queensland, and this is one of the most biodiverse regions in Australia. And it's also connected to Queensland's second biosphere reserve, the Great Sandy Biosphere Reserve, which is an incredible coastal ecosystem that also includes Fraser Island, which is a very famous sand island off the coast of Australia. So biosphere reserves and the concept of biosphere reserves really inspired many of my initial projects. Now, biosphere reserves, hopefully you can read that okay, yes, are recognised under UNESCO's Man and the Biosphere program to promote innovative approaches to sustainable development. There are currently 669 biosphere reserves in 120 countries, comprising terrestrial, marine and coastal ecosystems. As interdisciplinary learning laboratories for sustainability, biosphere reserves present an incredible opportunity to connect and engage communities in innovative approaches to the conservation of biological and cultural diversity. The World Network of Biosphere Reserves presents a valuable platform for community capacity building and knowledge sharing in response to the ramifications of climate change. So biosphere reserves can act as a model in inspiring global communities to develop innovative, responsive and adaptable approaches to climate action. And I was particularly inspired by this notion that biosphere reserves are learning laboratories for sustainability. And this idea that there's this equal balance between the conservation of biological and cultural diversity was really what attracted me to working with biosphere reserves through sound. And this idea, when we think about a protected area such as a biosphere reserve, in contrast to something like World Heritage or a national park, where we think about these protected areas as essentially closing that environment in a way, protecting it, whereas biosphere reserves are about active engagement, they're about participation, They're about the communities working together and having this equal balance between the conservation of biological and cultural diversity. So these ideas were the foundation of Biosphere Soundscapes. And Biosphere Soundscapes is a large-scale interdisciplinary project that's drawing on the possibilities of acoustic ecology. The project studies and records the soundscapes of UNESCO Biosphere reserves and investigates environmental patterns and changes through sound. Biosphere Soundscapes really sits at the intersection of art and science, with the recordings providing valuable data for scientific analysis and incredible source material for education programs, community engagement and creative works, which can bring public awareness to these environments. So this project seeks to explore and activate acoustic ecology from artistic, scientific and community perspectives. The project is designed to really inspire communities across the world to listen to the environment and explore the value of sound as a measure for social, cultural and environmental health in UNESCO Biosphere reserves. So this project was conceived in 2011 and it officially launched on World Listening Day in 2012 in Queensland, Australia, with an education program, a field recording expedition and a symposium in the Noosa Biosphere Reserve, which featured international sound artists, including Dr. Ros Bant and Dr. Daniel Blinkhorn, who are both pictured here field recording. So the project was really conceived as this inclusive and collaborative platform for artists, scientists and global communities to connect and explore the creative possibilities of sound and acoustic ecology. The recordings we were generating in the Biosphere reserves were contributing towards a searchable database that became useful to monitor ecological changes from biodiversity perspectives, but they were also made available for artistic projects and media aesthetic education. So the foundation of this project was really about education and awareness in inspiring a culture of listening. So acoustic ecology, as I'm sure many of you know, is a dynamic interdisciplinary field that really explores the social, cultural and ecological aspects of our environment through sound. So in the context of UNESCO Biosphere reserves, which are seeking to reconcile the conservation of biological and cultural diversity, acoustic ecology offers valuable tools to understand the environment and cultural changes from a diversity of perspectives. So I've always been very inspired by the foundations of acoustic ecology and the interdisciplinary possibilities it presents. So Biosphere Soundscapes is completely underpinned by this field and also inspired by more recently rapidly emerging fields of biology that have been concerned with the study of environmental patterns and changes through sound. So while acoustic ecology has very clear historical foundations since the 1970s with Schaefer and his team at Simon Fraser University, the emergence of fields such as bioacoustics, ecoacoustics and soundscape ecology have focused more specifically on exploring our sonic environment from scientific perspectives. In the last decade, we've seen an increase in affordable, accessible digital recorders that can run continuously in the field for weeks on end. Advances in computing technology also means we can do automatic analysis of these audio recordings, the recognition of acoustic signatures of particular species, which has started to become quite transformational for ecosystem monitoring in terrestrial environments in particular. So the notion of holistic analysis of the entire soundscapes, which has become key to the emerging field of ecoacoustics, originated primarily from the World Soundscape Project at Simon Fraser University. Now, in the literature, there are interesting perspectives on the idea that recording the environment using sound and digital technology as a measure for environmental health is a very new field. We regularly see references to acoustic ecology as an arts and humanities field. For example, this diagram from a landscape ecology journal in 2011, which hopefully you can see that clearly, suggests that acoustic ecology in many ways is making quite a small contribution to these new emerging fields. Yet arguably everything in this diagram, from psychoacoustics and perception of sound to the more bioacoustics perspectives, could be under the umbrella of acoustic ecology as well. So I really prefer to consider acoustic ecology as the umbrella field that is truly exploring the social, cultural and ecological aspects of our environment through sound. In this instance, we can see how truly interdisciplinary the field is, crossing the artistic and scientific possibilities of listening to the environment. Now, bioacoustics, ecoacoustics and soundscape ecology all share the notion of environmental sound as data. Acoustic ecology additionally considers the aesthetic properties of sound. So in this diagram, I'm really exploring the way that I personally approach acoustic ecology in the Biosphere Soundscapes project and the other work that I'm doing. In that, I strongly believe perspectives such as Stephen Feld's acoustomology, this idea of sound as a distinctive medium for knowing the world, and naturally deep listening traditions as pioneered by the late Pauline Oliveros are critical elements to truly understanding the interdisciplinary possibilities of acoustic ecology. But these perspectives on actively listening to the environment are not present in bioacoustics or ecoacoustics, which typically seek to remove subjective perception from the process, while I believe acoustic ecology privileges it. Yet these approaches are not mutually exclusive. So in the context of Biosphere Soundscapes, this is really how I'm approaching acoustic ecology as a highly inclusive, interdisciplinary field that can incorporate these emerging scientific disciplines, but offers a broader scope to really explore the social and cultural context of our environment through sound. Now, UNESCO Biosphere reserves being underpinned by the conservation of biological and cultural diversity means that Biosphere Soundscapes is also actively engaging with the voices of communities, with urban soundscapes, and naturally with music and language. So it becomes a very strong framework to explore the notion of a biosphere reserve. So I just wanted to give a brief overview of the structure of the Biosphere Soundscapes project. The fundamental core of Biosphere Soundscapes is our residencies, which are 10-day experiences where we bring together international artists, scientists and researchers and work collaboratively in a biosphere reserve. And these experiences are designed to engage directly with the local community and bring together participants that are open to the interdisciplinary possibilities of acoustic ecology. So these residencies have taken place across Australia and the Asia Pacific region and are really designed to facilitate partnerships and long-term projects as well. As an example, the most recent residency we hosted in the Sayancan Biosphere Reserve in Mexico facilitated numerous partnerships with the local community, but it also became a catalyst for national organisations to work together. So Fonoteca, the Mexican Sound Archive, worked also with the Ministry of Environment in Mexico. So two organisations that wouldn't traditionally work together started this collaborative process as a result from engaging with the Biosphere Soundscapes residency. So this structure of residencies is the foundation of the project, and at its core, it's really about education and engagement. So the project has numerous other layers, including various creative outcomes ranging from performances and installations to augmented reality experiences that I'll briefly introduce soon. We also run a wide diversity of masterclasses, both physically in biosphere reserves and virtually online in collaboration with UNESCO, particularly in the Asia-Pacific region. And we host a variety of internships and courses, which are often designed to bring students from arts and humanities and environmental sciences together to collaborate on projects in biosphere reserves. And we have a whole range of projects associated with this that connect into a global sound map, which is relaunching in early 2017 as an interactive database that is mapping the changing soundscapes of biosphere reserves in real time. So Biosphere Soundscapes really puts important balance on the interdisciplinary perspectives and ensures that equal time is spent on artistic and scientific perspectives, in addition to engaging and learning directly from the community. The design and development of these residencies begins first and foremost with establishing a dialogue with local Indigenous communities to identify appropriate ways for participants to engage and learn about the Biosphere Reserve from Indigenous perspectives. Now, these acoustic recordings of the environment also provide the community of the Biosphere Reserve a viable means to understand and document the temporal and spatial complexities of changing ecosystems through non-invasive technology. The opportunity for these emerging disciplines is increased with new advances in reliable, accessible, and affordable audio recorders that can be distributed throughout the community. So a key element of the project is with all the communities we're working with, we're leaving these small handheld recorders with the community so they can continue recording and continue facilitating sound walks and workshops and field recording expeditions within the community. So these audio recordings can provide critical data for biodiversity analysis, and the process of collecting these recordings, whether that's facilitated through the Biosphere Soundscapes team or the local community, really facilitates opportunities for community engagement, media aesthetic education, and citizen science. And disseminating the resulting recordings on accessible virtual platforms, including the sound map that we're developing, is gradually becoming critical to understanding the rapid ecological changes that are taking place across the globe. So Biosphere Soundscapes combines artistic perspectives, emerging sciences, and new technologies to work directly with local and global communities in highlighting the changing soundscapes of UNESCO biosphere reserves. The resulting soundscapes continue to provide this valuable database while at the same time offering infinite possibilities for creative interpretations. And these artistic works are designed for global engagement to really create the experience of being present and immersed in UNESCO biosphere reserves, particularly as some of these biosphere reserves aren't traditionally accessible, such as the centre of the Amazon rainforest in the Central Amazon Biosphere Reserve. So these creative outcomes are disseminated at international events and realised as performances, installations, and augmented reality experiences. And we're always tracking how that impact and engagement with these creative outcomes can really contribute towards this idea of shifting perception around how people engage with the environment. So recent examples of this include Rainforest Listening, which is an augmented reality installation that layers the tropical rainforest soundscapes of the Central Amazon Biosphere Reserve in urban environments across the world. And these soundscapes are then accessed via mobile phones. So Rainforest Listening launched in September 2015 in the centre of Times Square, as you can see pictured here, where we mapped a large component of the Central Amazon Biosphere Reserve through Times Square. And this was a featured event for Climate Week 2015. So it meant delegates that were discussing the future of the Amazon rainforest could walk through Times Square in the breaks and actually listen and engage with this environment that they were talking about. And we ran a research project alongside this that actually tracked how people spoke about the Amazon after listening and how it physically changed their presence in the space, walking through this overly intensive multisensory environment like Times Square. What happened when that was juxtapositioned, 5 minutes, okay, thank you. What happened when that was juxtapositioned with the incredible diversity of the soundscapes of the Central Amazon Biosphere Reserve? So rainforest listening was also featured at COP21 in Paris, where the Eiffel Tower and surrounding parklands were transformed into an immersive sonic experience. Each observatory platform of the Eiffel Tower was interpreted as the 4 distinctive layers of tropical rainforest vegetation through immersive soundscapes. And these were pure field recordings and also compositions in response to the Amazon. So the touring creative outcomes of Biosphere Soundscapes are really critical factors for public awareness and to provide immersive multisensory experiences to inspire action and engagement with the major ecosystems across our planet. Biosphere Soundscapes is designed to be accessible, adaptable, inclusive, and responsive to the diversity of locations in the world network of biosphere reserves. The project is currently working with 14 active locations with 22 sites in development, with the wildly ambitious plan to map the changing soundscapes of 100 biosphere reserves in the next decade. So the next project I want to very briefly talk about is very connected to Biosphere Soundscapes. It's called River Listening, and this is an interdisciplinary project that explores the cultural and biological diversity of global river systems through sound. So this is integrated into Biosphere Soundscapes, but obviously has a specific focus on just one ecosystem, being river systems. So the project examines the creative possibilities of accessible and non-invasive recording technologies to monitor river health and engage local communities in the conservation of global river systems. So like Biosphere Soundscapes, it's primarily focused on engaging and activating the interdisciplinary possibilities of acoustic ecology. The project launched in Australia in 2014, and the initial phase of River Listening was really designed to explore the artistic and scientific possibilities of hydrophone recording, so underwater recording, and designed to really activate community engagement through education programs, recording expeditions, and installations. Now, if we think about the idea of monitoring some of these ecosystems through sound, if we're looking at an environment such as this along a riverbank in Australia and we're wanting to understand environmental changes, we can naturally visibly see the health of the trees. We can often see what's happening, 2 minutes, thank you, see what's happening in the tree branches as well. We can see birds. We have a visual association with the health of this ecosystem, and naturally we can hear what's audible as well. But looking at the surface of this river, we have absolutely no idea what's happening beneath the surface. This could be an incredibly healthy ecosystem, or it could be very polluted. So I've been working with a number of scientists to explore ways that we can monitor the health of a river system through sound. And the main scientists I've been working with are traditionally using these 2 techniques, electrofishing, which is incredibly invasive in that they're shocking and stunning everything in the river system, allowing it to float to the surface and then counting it and tagging it, which doesn't seem like a very effective method to me. And then capture and release, which many scientists agree this method does not reflect reality either. I'm about to be called on time, so I'm going to skip through a couple of these slides very quickly and just say that the majority of species that we're working with in these river systems are soniferous. So the aquatic insects that we're attempting to monitor in Australian river systems all make sound. The species of fish that we're monitoring in particular river systems also make sound. So it means that now we can use these low-cost digital field recorders and actually monitor these changes in the river system in real time. And naturally, like Biosphere Soundscapes, this has a whole spectrum of creative possibilities as well. We've been developing databases and sound maps. And these sound maps naturally include all of the pure field recordings, hydrophone recordings we're doing, but then creative responses to these. And launching in 2017 will be a mobile phone app that will allow communities across the world to plug a hydrophone straight into their mobile phone and stream rivers in real time, but also contribute recordings and compositions to this database. I do have a couple more slides, but I've been called, so I'll behave and finish there. Thank you very much. I hope you enjoyed that presentation.